Welcome to Team Woolly Sheep Reviews. Quadcopters. Right, you probably, much like me, where you start to get to a point where you're collecting quadcopters, and this is only a couple of my favourites, not to mention the ones that's scattered about in boxes and out of the way. One of the last quads I flew was this, and I used it with a GoPro on the top and did some filming, and also used it as a chase quad. So then I saw this, which is FR7. It's an FR7 copy. It's a Frank. It's on Banggood, and it's a 7-inch quad. And I thought, well, this is a 7-inch quad. Ignore the hanger on the back, but so this is a 7-inch quad, but there's a little bit of a difference in size. This is a proper 7-inch quad, but what I liked is the form factor of having the GoPro there in the front, out of the way of the props. So you should. So what I'm saying is you get better camera footage without props being in view, and this should deal with that. The arms are cranked back. They're cranked back to give you a little bit more visibility in the front. This is the QAV XS frame, so it was a stretched frame. This was absolutely gorgeous, but I've got 30 amp ESCs on here, which is probably just as what I want. So I've decided this is going to be the donor. I know I've got a Joshua Bardwell flight controller. It's an F4 board on there, and it's the version 2. So I know it's got a good board. It's got a good VTX unit on there. So I think it's the Matec board. It's good for about 400 milliwatts of VTX power. So this is going to be the replacement for that. Obviously I've got different motors. I've gone for the 1700 Emax Eco motors, and it's quite a nice motor and very smooth. I like the little mounting feet, so you're not penetrating the windings with the rogue screw. That sounds awful, doesn't it? That sounded so bad. Anyway, so but what I liked about this is obviously a TPU flexible front end. If I decide I want to change it, I can print a GoPro 9 mounted. You know, there are accessories there. I'm going to put the antennas out the front. This is obviously designed for crossfire in mind. So I'm going to swap it out. Like I said, there's plenty of room. I've managed to get it in there. I'm going to get it in there, no problem. But instead of strapping the battery on underneath there, I can strap a battery on the underside if I want, but I can put my 4S 3300s. It's important to use the batteries that you've got, and I've got some 4S batteries, the 3300s that I use on my EDF jets and the thing. If I go flying and something happens and I can't fly the jet, I got all these batteries charged, so I'm trying to make my models compatible with the batteries I've got, so I could then have this in my backpack and use those batteries in there as well. This was success compatible. I didn't know at the time, but it is. Didn't have any intentions of using 6S at the time, but I can. I ain't going long range. This is going to be a chase cam. Not interested in going any great distances, so it'll only be flying around our local flying site. So no UHF, no crossfire, nothing any long range at the moment. Let's get on with it. Less talking, more working. Right, one thing to be mindful of, I've just stripped it out and I've got a standard camera. This was the Runcam Swift. Too big. So fortunately I had myself a Foxeer Predator, and that fits in there absolutely bang on. So nice Foxeer Predator with a nice wide angle lens on there, and as you can see the FPV's up on the top. This is not designed for gate bashing. You ain't crashing this because everything is up and accessible. So that's where the camera's going to go. GoPro's down there, so as you can see it's a good position. So a nice feature with this as well, I've noticed it's got the antenna mount at the back there, So I'm gonna have a look, see how I can, I'll probably put the VTX on the back instead of mounted all sandwiched on top. VTX on the back then, and a little pigtail out to there. I think I will put my receiver, I'll see how it goes, but I'm hoping I can get my receiver inside underneath that pillar there, and have the antennas come out the front, so when I'm flying then the antennas are there sticking out the front there. It was going so well until I had to extend the battery leads. And people who build quads will know how tight some of these connections are on the main board. Managed to get it off, but what I noticed is that obviously with the wear and tear and the movement, is the trackers started to come away. We're talking about 100 amps at those connections. So your battery lead at peak throttle could be delivering 100 amps through a very small soldering connection. When there's the batteries flexing and moving, that starts to peel off. And in this case I noticed it was starting to peel. So there's two things I can do with this. So what I can do is I can put one of these boards on it, which is just purely for connecting, a power distribution board. So I can connect the battery onto those big connections and all the ESCs to their distribution, and take the fly leads up onto the main board. That's all I got left to do. I can't rely on that main board. Downside, a little bit higher on the stack. The other downside is I don't get current monitoring. I'm a bit gutted about that because it was going really well and it was a nice build, and then there we are. It happens. It happens. Just gotta suck it up and keep going. So I'm not gonna finish this. So I'm gonna have to come back. So I'm gonna stop the filming. I'm gonna have to come back. So I've now got a power distribution board underneath. So basically, battery pos and egg onto the power distribution board, and then there's little pos and egg pads for the ESCs, and that's all they did on the main board. They went round pos and egg to each one of them. So, but of course you've got to get the power back onto the main board. So as the battery pos and egg is faulty, what I've done, I've taken a pos and egg from a spare connection up onto an ESC connection on the main board, so that'll backfeed through all the pos and egg circuits, so it should work. But I've got one of these which is what I call a smoke stopper. So because there's been lots of soldering, lots of potential for mistakes, I've soldered them all on, and I'm pretty confident. I've checked, I've soldered, and I've stopped. Checked pos and egg, pos and egg, pos and egg, pos and egg, red, black, red, black, red, black, red, black, to make sure that there's reds to the poses. But even though I do that every time, still sometimes happens to get it wrong, and maybe you get a little splash of solder that could cause a problem. I've checked, double checked, and a safety check. So when I plug a battery in, what I want to see, make sure everything, if you look, I've got some braid on there, and I got some shrink tube on there, and I haven't shrunk it down yet. I'm going to keep it separate, keep it off the carbon so it's not touching. Carbon is conductive, so if it touches the carbon board, you're going to have magic smoke. What I'm going to do is plug a battery in before I go any further and see what happens, because it should all light up and everything should be fine, but if smoke starts bellowing out of it, then I give up. And as you can see, it's powered up. I'm going to unplug it a sec. What I'm going to do is I'm going to check the rotation of all the motors. I'm not going to assume, because they're different motors, it could be wound differently, and they could all be backwards. Because at this point, I can either go into the software and change it and reverse the motor. All I need to do is swap a pair of wires on each ESC that's back to front. So I'm going to check it. Hopefully it's okay. If not, I'll have to make that decision whether I do it through the software or whether I do it. It's looking nice. Like I said, I've got the flight control board there. I've got the VTX at the back, so it's all visible and I can see it. And I've got on a pigtail. Don't forget, guys, never power it up without an antenna on. The receiver is a full range FrSky receiver. It's a RXRS, I think it's called. It's a small one, but it's got telemetry and everything. And that's going to go on the front, and I'm going to have the antenna sticking out the front there. It's time to try it to see if it works. Yeah. Every motor's going backwards. So I'll do it through the software. Once I've done it, I'm gonna actually shrink tube and seal it all up. But what I will do, I will put a reasonable thickness double-sided rubberized pad there. When these ESCs get hot, obviously anything that's sticking them down starts to get a little bit soft and pliable. The shrink tubing is good. This is quite a thick shrink tubing, so it will give it plenty of protection. But what you can't happen is for this ESC to touch the carbon fibre, even the little bits of solder or any corners or sharp edges. If it does, then you will see an ESC erupt. So I'm going to leave it now. It's getting late, and I'm going to call it a night, and I'm going to pick this back up and carry on. I'll have my laptop, I'll flash it, and I'll get some new firmware on it, something more current maybe, and yeah, we'll get this thing flying soon.